listening to The Smoking Section.
All right, here we are, another episode of Smoking Section Podcast. I am here. I have never met this guy before. This is the first time we've met. However, I gained interest of this guy when I saw him at the CRS UMG luncheon, and I think that he had just found out that his wife was pregnant. I think.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Think.
Yeah.
He has songs like Yadda Yadda Yadda. He has songs like Speakers, Bleachers, and Preachers. He has songs like he just released called Starting Young. So his name is Brandon Lay. And Brandon, welcome to Smoking Section Podcast. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time to do this. This is gonna be fun. Sorry we could not do it in person, obviously, with everything going on right now.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. That would maybe we can circle back and do that again one day. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Normally for
kind of live up to the name. Yeah.
Live up to the name of having a cigar and some whiskey. You know, it's been tough. We did a whole season prior to this in Zoom, and it drove me crazy. It was very tough to stay on brand to have during Zoom.
I bet.
So, so let's start. Let's talk about your childhood. You are from Jackson, Tennessee. You were a preacher's kid. Mm-hmm. You were an athlete. Mm-hmm. You loved music. So, tell me, what was your lifestyle like in Jackson, Tennessee? Very
middle America, just middle class, church and ball was like, throw in a few girlfriends, and that was life. You know what I mean? So I think you just summed it up. As quintessential as it sounds. Real involved going to church all my life. My two sisters were older and they sang in church. Obviously my dad was a minister for, gosh, he still is employed at the church, but life did revolve around that and basketball games. So it was either shooting free throws or chasing girls around Jackson, and that was about it, man. But it made for a really good I feel like the American experience, if you will, is as dramatic as that sounds. I feel like I had it in Jackson, Tennessee.
So what year did you end up decide to move to Nashville? Were you playing around Jackson beforehand, or were you playing around different states and going traveling as an artist and a singer?
Yeah, I had just started kind of branching out. The first time I ever played in front of anybody was at a little block building bar by the Tennessee River, and I didn't tell anybody I was going just because I just wanted to get my feet wet, at an open mic on a Tuesday night. And that summer we went back every Tuesday night. I started bringing all my friends, and I had actually my former basketball coach in high school. Well, he's like, man, I'm gonna put you a band together. And so I got you a drummer and a bass player. And before you knew it, we were playing around Jackson. And after I graduated college, with a business degree, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've either used that degree every day or I've never used it. It's one of those things.
Right.
But I just wanted to go to Nashville and, chase the dream. And I felt like there's a odd time kind of after college. I'm sure a lot of people listening can identify with that. There's a window where, a lot of people don't figure out what they want to do exactly in college, So that was my time to chase the dream down. And I took off, and my sister happened to be teaching kindergarten in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is about 20 miles south. So I did have a soft place to land compared to a lot of people, like coming from Montana. You know what I mean? So right. I was blessed in that regard, just being 2.5 hours away and having a sister with an empty bedroom. And I would just commute every night downtown and play as many open mic nights as I could.
So what was the first song you got there? What were your go-to songs you got there when you did open mic nights?
Oh gosh. They were bad. I'm going to tell you, man, I had this song. I entered in local radio. It was called Tell Me She's Ugly. And that song was the goofiest thing, man. But it won this little radio contest at Froggy 104. And so I got to open for Ash Bowers and Jonathan Singleton, who both guys were in the industry ahead of me, and they were both from Jackson. But that was like a big deal. playing in Omen Arena. So I won the contest with that song called "Tell Me She's Ugly," and that was kind of like my bar cult following. Everybody, jammed out to that. But yeah, it's just embarrassing now when you look back. But you got to start somewhere.
That is hysterical. Tell me she's.
I mean, I bet you can guess the premise on that.
Exactly.
Yeah. You don't want to see your ex looking good. I think the song had a lot of heart, and maybe it wasn't executed the best, but hey, it was honest.
Hey, and you got to open for Jonathan Singleton, who's obviously a number one hit songwriter, and Ash Bowers, who is now the manager of Matt Stell and one of my really good friends, Jimmy Allen.
Jimmy,
yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Anyway,
he's something, man.
He's something. So you're trying. So you were playing around. You did open mics. You open for two great artists and songwriters at that time.
Yeah.
What year did you move to Nashville? Were you traveling back and forth, or were you just decided to move?
When I moved in 2010, it was 2 months after the big flood in Nashville. So, I think they were just pretty much cleaning that up when I got there. And that's when I was there. I kind of took an athlete's mentality. I kind of gave up my landscaping business, and I had a couple of rental houses, like old duplexes that I bought from my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was fixing those up. And the only time I come back to Jackson was to fix a hot water heater. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I was coming back to Jackson for. So while I was there, I was trying my best to stay, focused and write like hell and try to meet new guys that were doing the same thing as me. And it's funny, the same Jameson Rogers is a good buddy. We used to be roommates, and we actually moved to town on the same weekend. So, it's funny. I met him at the Bluebird the first time, and we were, tighter now than ever. And 11 years later, so it's kind of crazy.
Wow, Jameson Rogers is good. He's a good dude. So your roommate, I would love to hear stories of you guys rooming together.
Jameson, I want to out him a little bit. He when it would get a thunderstorm, he would get scared. He was scared of thunderstorms.
What?
It's kind of weird. Yeah, I know I'm kind of telling on him, but he'd be like, "Oh man, it's brewing up, man. You see that radar?" So,
what?
You're such a redneck, man. He'd go hide under the kitchen table. So
that's funny.
I'm kind of out on him a little bit.
His fiance is actually. I went to college with his fiance, and and I used to book her. She was 18, 19 years old. I used to book at a venue here in Nashville. I used to book Jimmy, Drew Baldridge, and Sarah, and we. So
that's a good group.
But me and her, we used to go out after we were booked, because we both lived in Murfreesboro and was both going to MTSU. We would stop at Waffle House and just go and just sit and chat for maybe 2 hours at Waffle House.
That's awesome. That's a good place. That's a good place to figure the world out.
It's a good place to figure the world out. So 2010, 2 months after the flood, I moved to Nashville 2010 in January.
Okay.
I was here for the flood. I was supposed to leave that weekend to go back home, and I obviously couldn't do that.
Where's home for you?
Philadelphia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but couldn't do that. So you came after the whole aftermath. That's great. So what was your expectations coming to Nashville? What was your thought process?
I wanted to get a publishing deal. Anything to sustain, basically. My dad kept telling me, just, stay in the game. It's just going to be a long, he was a Southern Baptist preacher, so he wasn't crazy when I started playing these bars and stuff. But then, he knew that's what I was going to try to do. He's like, well, if you're going to do it right, So I really wanted to get a publishing deal so I could kind of quit, sell the rental houses and kind of get out of my business affairs, if you will, if you want to call them that, in Jackson, and just kind of focus on music. And it took 3 years, and I got a publishing deal with Warner Chappell. But I always wanted a record deal, but that seemed so unattainable. I just, I was thirsty for that pub deal, so I could be legitimate, a legitimate songwriter, and not have to worry about doing other odd jobs.
Was there anything? Was there anything about Nashville that you weren't prepared for? Did things that everything that you expect to happen as far as the atmosphere of Nashville, Tennessee, as far as the atmosphere of the music industry in Nashville, was that was it what you expected to be, or was it more so shocked on a lot of levels?
Yeah. Honestly, it was a pretty natural fit as soon as I got there. Because I guess I was kind of mentally ready for it, to answer your question,
Right.
because starting to co-write, I jumped right in with Jameson and Hunter Phelps and some other guys that we just jumped in and started co-writing. And my buddies back home would be like, "What, you sit in a room and think with another dude like for all day?" Like, it's so the concept is so weird, but the collaborative spirit of Nashville, it didn't shock me, but I was able to jump right in with it. So it's been good to me, the town, but you can also drive around and look at it like that's a club that I ain't in that I want to be in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
like I drove around the Batman building several nights after I, would play my one song after waiting in line at the Commodore and whatever. And I would just think, I feel like I'm part of it, but you're really not. You really want to crack in and make a go at it. So, overall, Nashville's been kind to me, but there's been times where I'm like, it feels kind of like high school with a lot of money. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you're in the club or you ain't. And for the most part, I consider myself on the outside, but I kind of always been an underdog, been the smallest guy on the court of the field, and so I think that's kind of helped fuel me too.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've noticed a commonality with a lot of country artists, just a lot of artists in general, is that at one point in time they were athletes, and it kind of tells the way that the discipline that sports instills in someone
Yeah.
translates into life and translates into future businesses and ventures after that.
That's so true. Yeah. The one thing that did surprise me when I moved, I had no idea it took such a village to get something done, and being able to mesh with other people. I think you learn that in sports. Most people think the parallels are just discipline and go hard,
Right.
but really teamwork is one of the biggest parallels with sports and music, because man, I had no idea it takes a tour manager, a main manager, a day-to-day, a publisher, a publicist, A&R person, record like promotion people. I'm like, there's so many layers to that threw me for a loop.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of people, and that's the thing, a lot of people think that, the common person, common fan, they only think about, oh, okay, it's you and the manager and maybe a booking agent, or it's you and the band, and that's all they see.
Yeah.
Like you said, they don't realize the people who are calling every week or calling every day to get you played on and fighting for you to get you played on a certain radio station in the market, or the booking agent that's trying to get you picked up on a tour, on a major tour kind of thing. They don't realize that there's a whole lot of avenues than just being an artist.
It takes a lot of people fighting for you, for sure. I mean, obviously everybody knows it's super, I don't say competitive, because I don't look at it that way. It's art, and I think there's room for, if you're doing what you love and you're really connected to it, and it's worth the damn, it's going to connect eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, people have, I had no idea. I know my mom and dad, they always say we look at entertainment so different now than we used to. We used to think those people just sleep all day and go out all night, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of tears to this thing. So yeah, it's an animal.
Yeah. So you got your pub deal. Just fast forward to 2013. First of all, you got a pub deal, and that's, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a short period of time to get a pub deal after moving.
But 3 years, yeah.
3 years.
I was blessed. I was very fortunate to get it, for sure.
Yeah. There's some people who take 10 years, some people take 5 years, but 3 years is definitely a short period of time to make that accomplishment. Why'd you pick Warner Chappell? Was there any other deal on the table? Was there, there other smaller mom?
No, there wasn't. It's funny. There was a week. There's a guy you probably know, Robert Philhart, formerly of ASCAP.
Yeah.
That's a PRO for people that don't know, and they help songwriters get paid. But he was my advocate, and I was actually a BMI writer at the time, and I didn't think anything about it. But Trent Willman, actually, I was writing with Trent Willman. A lot of people know him for Beer Man, and he had some other hits. Trent Willman's such a good dude, and I was about to sign a very low level record and publishing deal with some private money, like one of those kind of things, and it was really going to tie me up, and I was kind of excited about it because I was like, man, I'm going to have a record deal. I'm going to have a publishing deal. And this is kind of a long way around to tell how I got it. But Trent Willman was like, before you sign that, I just want you to meet one guy. And it kind of pissed me off because I was like, man, I came to Trent, we were going to write. And I was like excited to tell him about this new opportunity. And he saw the contract and he was like, just please talk to this guy, Robert. I'm like, I'm BMI. What he's going to do for me? But I met Robert. I played him a song and he said, do you want a publishing deal this week? And I was like, well, yeah. And he took me around to 7 or 8 different publishers that week, like right away, and was just on fire for me. And I met Alicia Pruitt at Warner Chappell, and I went home and I told my wife, I was like, if there's any way I can get at Warner Chappell, that's the one out of all these 7, And it just so happens none of them wanted me except for Warner Chappell. So that was God's. Sometimes God is loud in his messaging. So that was a no-brainer. So I love Alicia Pruitt. Now BJ Hill is my guy over there, but Warner Chappell's been extremely generous because it was also like a development deal, an artist development deal. So they definitely had a lot to do with, at that time I was on the road a lot on the weekends doing frat houses and Southeast college clubs and stuff. And they had a big hand in, let me cut some, EPs and whatnot, kind of throw them out at shows. So
yeah, I was going to say during that time, did you release any music on your own, like, kind of thing? There was there, and how did that go over?
Gosh, I'd say this is, it's kind of like Tell Me She's Ugly, but I had an album when we were doing it called Me and Dixie, and it had 11 songs that were probably pretty amateur, but they were from the heart, and they connected. And we were playing clubs that were full down in Starkville, Mississippi, and they knew all the words. So that was the first time I got to experience something like that. And that's for anybody that doesn't know, that's out of all the hard work and traveling and stuff, that's what makes you get up in the morning. That's the most gratifying part, is when people know your music. That's the biggest compliment you can get. But other than that, I didn't, because I'll be honest, I was trying to play the long game, and I was trying to get that record deal, and I didn't want to jeopardize that. This totally doesn't make sense. Anybody listening to 2021, this totally doesn't make sense. But I was holding back, sandbagging, because I didn't want to release, music and then that jeopardized me getting a record deal, because maybe they wanted to save it and promote it. And that I wasn't the only one that thought that way at the time. Now it's so silly. It would be like, yes, put it out on YouTube, SoundCloud, get it out there. And that's, looking back, probably what I should have done, just because as technology grew with my career, it warped, it shifted. And so, but luckily I did get the big record deal with Universal. But at the same time, record deals mean less now than they used to, even though I'm so grateful to have one. Things like SoundCloud and Spotify, have definitely, you guys have definitely helped level the playing field, which I think is a good thing. So maybe I should have released more music on the come up, but I was trying to get that deal.
Here's my opinion on that, because people, you're absolutely right. Back then, I think everyone had the understanding that if you release a song on your own and it blew up or whatever, then not necessarily jeopardize you get the deal, more so, okay, you sign a deal and they're going to want to take it down and then re-release it, kind of ordeal, or have you re-record it.
That's what happened when I signed. They took, they removed all the music I had out. So
yeah, which kind of sucks for fans. Like, I get the business, like, obviously being in the business, we get the business side of things on that, but for fans, it's like, those are songs that people want to hear all the time that now the artist doesn't play live.
Yeah.
You know what
I
mean?
My dad told me, yeah, he was, I was like, Dad, I don't want to put those out. Like, I've got so much more going on. I've written so many more better songs than Me and Dixie album. I don't want to put that out. And he's like, well, people also, you might think it's rudimentary, but people want to watch you grow too, as a writer and an artist. They want to be a part of that, So I don't know, maybe I need to call my label after this and get that re-released. Yeah, you're totally right.
Like
You're right.
the fans are like, because I have a couple of old Jimmy Allen songs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that he forgot that I have.
Oh yeah. So are they blackmail or?
Well, yeah, they could totally be blackmail.
That's good though. Yeah, but you're right. People would starve to hear that. What you got?
Yeah. People starve to hear that, and it's. I know for me, there are some artists that released some things prior, and it was never re-released or it was taken down and things like that. But I would love to hear, because you, as a fan, we related to those songs.
Yeah.
And and then to have them kind of be taken away from us, it's like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely seems counterintuitive. I mean, when you're trying to grow a business, music is what that's the you're selling tomatoes. I mean, we're selling songs, you gotta have them. So
you gotta have them.
I've never understood I understand on one side, but just so you know now, I think I've probably have the same little bit of frustration every artist on the label has. Like, I've got stuff I can't wait to release. I'll just put it that way.
Right.
I'm excited about. I wish I could release it all, and I understand there's a whole process it has to go through. But yeah, the more music I can get to fans, I mean, that's what always makes something happen. And when you're not releasing anything in this day and age, you're slipping. People forget about you. And,
you're losing that. You're losing that momentum that you had.
That's right.
No matter what size of momentum you have, you're losing that momentum because you're basically disappearing. So that's like, okay, I'm doing this music. What do I do? What other thing do I do to try to keep myself relevant? In this business that I'm still out there. I'm still putting myself out there, kind of thing. And then I feel like sometimes that could be a downside, because at that point, I feel like some people might get known for doing whatever they decide to do outside of music, and not really know, what I mean, and not really known for what they really, really, really love to do and what they're really wanting to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really good point. I mean, you just never know, and I think the golden ticket is obviously success, but it's almost, you get the green light once you've gotten in the top 10, top 20, especially at number one. Then I think you can release them left and right, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've had a 39, so look at me. Like, I'm not, they're not flying off my cupboard, but they're in the cupboard, and I think I'm just trying to do what everybody else is trying to do and get heard.
Right. So, publishing deal. Did you have any cuts with any artists? Did I?
William Clark Green out of Texas. We wrote a song called Creek Don't Rise and Home Game on Cole Swindell's last album.
Oh, you wrote Home? Okay. Yeah. I know that. I do like that song. I did not know.
Oh, that. Thank you, man. Thank you. And I guess and Jimmy Allen, Underdogs. That was one I wish you would put out.
Holy shit, you wrote Underdogs?
Yeah.
Why did I know that?
I don't know. That's how I got to be friends with Jimmy.
Yeah, you need to come bowling with us then.
Yeah. All right.
You need to come bowling with us. We bowl about 4 or 5 times a week. It's kind of dangerous. That's awesome. It's a lot of shit talking that happens.
Oh, I bet, man.
So you wrote Underdogs. Okay. So I love that song. There's been times where I've seen, like, we've talked about doing deals. I've told him to do deals with that song regarding football and regarding he's an Eagles fan. The year, it would have been great, the freaking year that the Eagles went for that to be.
I was like, this is lining up perfect. I told my wife, I'm like, this couldn't be any better. Jimmy's gonna put out Underdogs, and it's gonna be the Eagles theme song. They're gonna win the Super Bowl.
They're gonna win a Super Bowl. That would have been perfect. That would have been perfect.
It just made too much sense, man.
Yeah,
you know how it is.
Yeah. So you have the song. I don't think actually, I know that song is never going to leave his set list.
Oh man, I hope not.
Because that's the song he closes his show with.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, he closed his show with that. That's crazy. I did not know that why didn't I know that? That you co-wrote that. Yeah, he closed the show with that song.
That's awesome.
I think for the last 2 years, and I don't see him changing that, like, ever.
Yeah. Good.
But that's great. So you had that cut, but you haven't had, like, aside from your own, you haven't had any singles with any artists as far as going on the charts and things like that.
No.
That's a hard thing to do. A lot of people don't realize that.
Man, yeah. It's such a series of small miracles, for something like that to happen. So I've had some close calls, that you get your hopes up and stuff, but I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be at the end of the day, and you got to write your best and go on. Hope people like them. So.
Right. So you get signed to Universal, which has, and you're on EMI.
That's right.
Was it always EMI? Was it always going to be Universal? No other deals there?
I'll tell you, it's like when you get an offer from one label, the other labels want to meet, and luckily I had some options, but I went with Universal because I'm a big Tennessee football fan, and I'm tortured, obviously, following those guys. But at the time, Butch Jones was the coach, and Brian Wright, and Stephanie Wright's my head person at A&R over there.
Right.
He used to play ball at Tennessee. He knew Butch. Make a long story short, we went to dinner, and they had Butch call me and offer me the record deal. So I went with Universal because that was pretty cool. And my mom and dad, they don't really know much about music at all, but my dad was like, "Oh, Butch Jones, Tennessee fan." He was like, that meant something all of a sudden to them. Like,
right.
Never mind the record deal. Butch Jones called you.
Butch Jones called. That's crazy. Okay, so what was the process? Because Speakers, Bleachers, and Preachers was your first single, right? So what was the process of that? Well, because I'm sure that wasn't the only option you guys had. So,
I think on the rollout, they really want to push, like, who you are and where you come from. And so I think that sentiment had a lot to do with choosing that single. It was a very literal, where I come from, what I'm about. But I think that's why they wanted to go with that one. And luckily, Universal's been so great. You hear horror stories about getting a record deal and having to cut what they tell you and all this stuff. They've let me cut the songs that I want to cut. And so when it got to the point of picking the first single, I didn't care because I liked all of them, so I was, but not to minimize what that song means to me, but I think that was the thought process behind it.
Gotcha. So, so how many, because I'm sure you were shopped around. I'm sure you shopped around in all the labels, like you just said. But how many no's did you get before you got the deal?
I tried not to have too many meetings until I was really ready. I say three good hard no's. Yeah. And they were mainly after showcases, if you will.
Right.
They were really just shows in Nashville, but it was knew somebody that would invite.
Right. The way it works in Nashville, basically.
Yeah.
I had
three pretty hard no's,
What was the hardest no, and what's been the hardest no in this industry that you've had to be like, oh shit, like that one hurt?
I'll tell you what hurt. So I driving my old motorhome. I had 6 guys, my band. We traveled around the country in this motorhome. I was going from Nashville to Starkville, Mississippi to go play, and we were going all over the South that weekend. And I was crossing the Tennessee River, and I'll not name my former manager, called me and said that Rochetta's in. We got the deal. You got a record deal. Congratulations, man. And I got to Jackson because it was like a, kind of a halfway point.
Right.
My mom and dad met them at Tractor Supply parking lot. My mom was like tearing up. We were so happy and all this stuff. Come to find out, it wasn't true. And that I found that out like later that night that, well, this happened and this happened, and it never was true. I think a lot of times people run on hype in Nashville to get things done, and you hype it up and make somebody believe this and this and this, and then it actually happens. But that wasn't the case this time. So that was the most rug pulled out from under me experience that I had, because I really thought I'd gotten what I dreamed of,
Right.
and then found out that it was more or less, it was a lie. So
that is some fucked up shit. I'm gonna go ahead and say it.
Yeah,
That's some fucked up shit for that to happen.
I think that might have been the first thing I said when I found that out too. So
wow, that is some fucked up shit. I've heard some stories in Nashville that I think that one takes the cake. That's
yeah, I know, man. Even meeting my parents and like having that moment,
that moment, so okay, so now I get why, because I'm sitting here after you told me about the whole Butch Jones with your dad. Now I understand why they really didn't react the way that they should have reacted. They would probably still have it, but they didn't react because they had already been played once.
Been punked, yeah, I know. It's like crying wolf, but yeah. Luckily, about 2 years later, it finally came. But that's I'm a believer in God's timing, and that probably wasn't the right time and wasn't the right place for me to have a deal anyway. So I kind of developed a few more years playing more honky tonks and writing more songs, and I think it all worked out for the best.
So you played honky tonks. Did you play anywhere downtown?
Man, okay, so Ash Bowers, Jackson, Tennessee guy, hometown kind of hero, if you will. He's always been my boy. He told me not to play downtown. He said, stay away from it. And he said, you'll make some money, then you'll get trapped and you'll be doing that. And he said, when you're Ash, you'll be writing songs. And I think that was some of the best advice that I got, because I got that old motorhome and I bought it off Craigslist, and we would hit the road and kind of try to grow the brand, if you will. And I think that was some really good advice, because I also made better money,
right,
on the road than I would at Nashville. So I don't know. I think that kind of going out and seeing new places and being heard in different states and stuff and then writing songs during the week, I think that was a good formula.
That is crazy, because I always tell people, I haven't talked to Ash in a long time, but I always tell people, don't play downtown, because I always say the same thing, because you do get stuck. And this is not knocking on anyone who plays downtown, because,
absolutely not,
because they're very talented. They do that show on a regular fucking basis, and they're very talented. But and a lot of them are happy doing what they're doing because they're making a living.
Yeah, I mean, some of my guys play. Like now when we're not on the road, they'll go play and stuff. So yeah, I definitely got respect for them. But as a brand new artist, yeah, you're right. I think it's better to get on the road.
It's better to get on the road. It's better to get on the road. It's better to play the writers round so you can test out your new songs, than to go downtown where you're getting drunk every night and
playing wagon wheel and
Leonard Skinner and everything else.
Yeah, you can be a hero down there playing somebody else's songs.
Exactly.
You can
pretend. Exactly. So it's just like I've always said that too. I've actually told a couple of friends that who are playing downtown, like, you need to get out, because if you don't get out now, you're gonna be trapped here for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. I'm still stuck on the fact that motherfucker told you were signed.
I know, man. Who does that? I don't know.
I hope to God that he is not working in the industry anymore. God, I hope he's not working.
I don't even know. I don't wish any ill will on him, but after that, obviously, I fired him. So
right,
that was that.
Right. So like I said at the beginning of the interview, that the first time I even heard the name Brandon Lay was at the Ryman, and I think it was the first time you played the Ryman, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. I announced that my wife was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even told, like, Stephanie, is my A&R. She's my go-to on the label. And she was like, I got off stage and she was like, what the hell? You didn't tell me that? So yeah, I try to keep that a secret.
Yeah, you got to. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, and then you played. So let's talk about it, because that was your first time. And obviously it wasn't like an outright, Ryman show, but it's still a Ryman. And I try to tell people that, like, it doesn't matter what you're there for. You can have an empty fucking crowd in there and going on a tour, and they just let you sing or whatever in that circle on the Ryman. What's it like being in that historic stage, standing on that historic stage, and just looking out at people?
Well, first of all, like, aesthetically, it's an awesome room. If you just look at it for for what if you take the history out of it and just stand there, the stage is closed, the balcony's closed, it's warm, it's round and it's warm, and the monitors are badass, and that's a really big deal playing, 'cause
Yes.
somebody's always bitching about monitors, and they're so good, and it makes playing such a joy. But then you add in all the history, and gosh, this sounds terrible, but I did my best to not think about how important it was. I tried not to psych myself out, because I was like, man, I can do that later, But while I was there, I'm like, it's just another stage. It's just another stage, telling my guys before we went on stage, you know what I mean?
Right.
But like we can soak in it after we do our job. But I tried to downplay it in my head. I guess that's like a sports psychology thing. But afterwards, I was like, yeah, this is pretty surreal.
Wow. Yeah, I've been on that stage, and I was with Jimmy. Jimmy just played that during the whole quarantine thing, and
Oh, nice.
and we went. I did the whole backstage thing, and we was walking off. We were able to walk off and cross across the stage,
Oh, nice.
and it was me and Cortland Finnegan, and we were like, we're on the stage, and there's no one in here. So I have never posted these pictures, but there's pictures of me and him on the stage, like
that's awesome.
like just soaking it in.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think I walked off and I'm like, holy shit, I just did that on the stage of the Ryman. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit,
Yeah.
So that's that. I wanted to know that. I wanted to know how that feeling was, because I figured you were a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I was so nervous, man. I think I drank 2 airplane bottles of Fireball before I went on stage. Yeah, I was pretty nervous, man.
So who's been your biggest influence in music?
Man, this sounds like I'm just making it up because I went on tour with him, but Kenny Chesney.
Really?
Like, I started really loving country music when he started taking off with like Young and How Forever Feels, and I Go Back. That When the Sun Goes Down album happened to come out my senior year of high school, and so it was kind of the anthem, that whole album, to a lot of first, a lot of first beer on the river, and getting out of high school, and just a lot of freedom kind of wrapped around that record. And so Kenny being the East Tennessee guy, his work ethic really inspired me, because people would say nobody's going to outwork him. And I said, I want to be that guy that people say that about. I want to grind like that. And I was thankful to get to go on tour with him. And they say never meet your heroes, and it's like Kenny's the real deal still. So I really appreciate Eric Church's music and what he makes. I like his music, but I'd say for anybody that's still in it, Kenny is my inspiration.
Who's your first concert?
Kenny.
Kenny was your first.
Yeah. I was in 8th grade, and we had some terrible seats, but we were behind the curtain. It was in Oman Arena in Jackson, and like they blocked off half of it, right? And we were so far back, we could see him coming up on the riser. And my mom's married to a Southern Baptist preacher, and then I had my little girlfriend from 8th grade. And when the lights went out, I think they started playing Thunderstruck. I never heard either one of them scream like that, and I was like, "That's what I want to do right there. That's awesome." So it gave me chill bumps, and I don't know, I'll never forget that night.
I have definitely got to sit and have a beer with you after this, because we have a lot in common. We moved here the same year, and the same person got us into country music.
Really? That's awesome.
I started listening to Kenny Chesney around about the same time he started blowing up with the When the Sun Goes Down album. And,
really?
And he was my first country concert.
Really?
It was him and Gretchen Wilson. And
I know that too.
Yeah.
That was a kick-ass lineup. Yeah.
Gretchen Wilson, Uncle Cracker, Pat Green, and Kid Rock showed up. Big and Rich was on there too. And in different cities, Big and Rich was on it.
Oh man, that was wild. That was wild.
That was a good time. That was one of my top favorite concerts that he
Yeah, that was a great. I got to see that when they came to Nashville, and that was awesome.
Man, oh man. So what's next for you? Is Starting Young going to be the next radio single?
I don't think so.
No.
No, I've kind of been, taking a lot of this quarantine time, I've been writing a lot and recording some new stuff that's brand new that nobody knows about.
Okay.
I don't even know if I've told the label yet, so I don't know when this is going to air or whatever. But just been cutting stuff and really, you got to have that one, like I said, that have a key to open up so you can release other ones. So we think we've got it with this next stuff. Hopefully, the radio game and everything is such a key part to it. But obviously, also guys like y'all and other avenues are making it where things can be heard, and that's all I want to do is tour and have songs that people can look up and hear also on stage. And when you're putting out little EPs, it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
You're going out opening for somebody for 20 minutes and they only know you for one little song, and so it's boring except that one song they might kind of know. So I would love to have these available where we can just tour off of them.
What's been your best song written so far?
Oh gosh,
what would you consider? I know they're all kids, so yes, I am asking you to pick a favorite.
Yeah, I wrote with Dean Dillon one time, and he scared the hell out of me.
God,
he was scared. He was just like when I met him, he was very intimidating, and obviously his success is intimidating. And I was a little fish writing with a big fish, and I had a little idea, and we wrote a song called "Broke." That's one of the new ones that we're going to be hopefully putting out. And I would say that's one of my better ones. That one, and there's also one I wrote in my dorm room called "More I'm For" that I wrote, 12 years ago. But right now, I would love to release it. It just feels really, really timely. So those two are kind of my closest kids, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I always tell people it doesn't matter when the song is written.
Yeah.
If it's a hit song, it's a hit song. It doesn't matter when. Like, for instance, "Stick That in Your Country" song by Eric Church was written, I think, 6-7 years ago.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's
written
the height of Broke Country. Huh.
Yeah.
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 That makes sense now. Yeah.
It makes a whole lot of sense. So it's still timely. You know what I mean? So if you have one of those that is just still timely right now that you written 12 years ago, that's gonna be it.
I put it off. My sister and my mother-in-law kept nudging me to cut it, and it's not like it's not like I'll just be honest. I don't think it's like the best song ever as far as maybe melody or whatever goes, but it's like the most brutally honest song I could put together, and I feel like a lot of people need to hear it and would like to hear it. So I'm excited for that one.
That's great. So I'm gonna transition because I want to touch on this because we haven't touched on it the entire time. Married man, happily married, daddy now.
Daddy of two now. Yeah.
Daddy of two now.
Weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you something, man. This is really random. Okay, I get accused of being too sentimental all the time, but there's this random hotel in Bowling Green, Kentucky, that has an indoor swimming pool that I learned to swim in, and we would always come as a cheap vacation as a family when I was young to this hotel. And Nicole and I needed a few nights away from Nashville, and so right now I'm in the basement of that hotel in the conference room, and we're going to wear out the pool here in a minute with my kids in the same pool I learned to swim in. So it's pretty cool. They've kept this old hotel. Yeah. So, I mean, it gives you an idea of how nostalgic I am, but yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Man, that's crazy. So what do you name your kid? What you name your kids? You have two girls?
Ryder is the little boy. He's 2. And then Lara Jean is 9 months old. She's a little girl. So it's weird, man. I never thought I'd be like, even when I got married, it felt so weird to call Nicole my wife because it sounded like too old and official. So I called her my girlfriend until like 5 years into our marriage. So now calling myself a dad, it's like
you can't wait till they're 5 years old to call you call them dad.
I know. I absolutely love it. But then when I think about it, sometimes I'm like, man, it wasn't that long ago. I was in Panama City on spring break. You know what I mean? So it's all good now.
There goes my life.
There you go. That's exactly right.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up here. But what I got one question for you, and because you've seen some success, um, but I want to know, what is your advice for someone nowadays in 2021? Obviously, this is 11 years into us living in Nashville, Tennessee. What's your advice to an artist, a writer coming into town?
If I could give them one thing, write alone. Like, don't get me wrong, you have to go out and network and write, but it's those like mornings and nights that when you're not in an official ride or whatever, write on your own. Because I hate to call it practice, but a lot of times when you meet somebody new, you take half the day just to kind of get going, and you might kick around some ideas in a room, and like, no, that's good to do, to get structure and all that, but there's nothing like the truth, so write, don't forget to write alone, so I think some of my best stuff has come that way, my best ideas. And I know everybody's different, but that'll help point you towards honesty.
Right. I think a lot of people, because they think that they have to write with everyone, because there's just so many.
Yeah.
You look at all these songs, there's 4 writers, 5 writers, 6 writers, and it's like,
yeah,
at that point, you're like, at what point do you decide that you're not making any money off this single?
Yeah. I know. Hey, if they want to put my name, I'll be a 6th though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining the show. I am looking forward to meeting you in person.
Likewise, Marcus, man. I really am. I appreciate it.
Definitely need to go bowling, because I really need someone to talk shit to Jimmy Allen besides me.
I can do that.
Besides
That'll
me,
work.
Major Tiffany stopped coming, so it's like he became a podcast. Yes, I said it on podcast.
Penny? Oh yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah. So, but this has been great. Thank you so much for doing this, taking the time out of your vacation, obviously, with your family.
No, Mark, man, I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be on the show and get to talk to you through this. It'll be fun to get together and
we'll get some whiskey, some bowling, and we'll get some cigars in first time we meet.
That sounds good, bro.
All right, thanks, man.
All right, see you.